probably didn't get it in time to be able to lay it out. So if you want, you can talk about things that you envision changing in the future. Mr. Masood, go ahead.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the committee, for the opportunity to lay out House Bill 3025 for you today. In April 1995, Deana Hebert's 20-month-old child, Bianca, was taken from Texas by her father to Mexico in violation of a court-ordered child custody arrangement. Bianca's father was charged with interference with child custody, and a court issued a warrant for his arrest. Deana spent over 16 years trying to find her daughter. In May 2021, Deana and Bianca were reunited briefly near Cancun, Mexico, after a private investigator tracked down Bianca's father. While Mexican authorities briefly took Bianca's father into custody, they did not extradite him back to Texas, purportedly because Mexico does not deem interference with child custody to be an extraditable offense under the Geneva Convention, and the statute of limitations had also run on charging Bianca's father with kidnapping. House Bill 3025 amends the Penal Code to help reduce the likelihood of a similar injustice from taking place by removing the statute of limitations for interference with a child custody order, increasing the statute of limitations for kidnapping of a minor to 20 years after the minor's 18th birthday, and permitting prosecution of individuals for kidnapping if they interfere with a child custody order by fleeing the United States. I envision making changes to this bill to limit the limitations lifting for child custody interference to only be if you take the child outside the United States. That's what I am envisioning doing with this bill, and happy to answer any questions from you. I would think that the key part about this bill is that if you abduct a child and flee the United States, you shouldn't be able to just run out the clock. That's really what this is about. And Deana is here to testify, along with her private investigator. Would be happy to defer to them to answer specific questions, but happy to answer any questions you may have that I can answer as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you
very much.
And
I respectfully reserve the right to close if possible.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair calls Deana Hebert. Is it Hebert?
Hebert.
Hebert. Deana Hebert, I show you registered testifying on behalf of yourself in favor of House Bill 3025.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. Sorry. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm very passionate about Bianca's Law and House Bill 3025. Last Friday was April 7th, and that marked 28 years since my daughter Bianca was kidnapped by her father. In 1995, Bianca was 19 months old. I kissed her goodbye as she left my arms for the weekend visit with her father, never to return to me again. Years went by without a trace of them, and all I could do was count birthdays that we were missing, and scraped knees, and dance recitals, and sleepovers, and all the things that little girls bring to their moms' lives. Moments and memories that I can never relive with her. It wasn't until 2021, 26 years later, that I was able to see her bright eyes again in a police station in Mexico. We had an hour and a half together. She was told that I died during childbirth. So imagine the shock to see me sitting across the room from her. She poured over pictures in a photo album that I had put together of her as a baby and us as a family. She expressed to me that she wanted to come back to Texas and meet her brother Devin and her grandparents and the rest of the family. But her father was released from custody that day, and she went back under his control, and I have not seen or heard from her since. I lost her again that day in Mexico. Please support Bianca's Law, HB3025, eliminating the statute of limitations on interference with child custody and kidnapping, so this never happens again to another Texan.
Yeah, I want to thank you for sharing your story. It's very difficult for you to be able to tell us those things, I'm sure, but we appreciate you being able to be here and letting us know how this has impacted your life.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair calls Mark Stevens. Sir, I have you registered as Mark Stevens, testifying on behalf of yourself in support of House Bill 3025. Is that all
Yes.
correct? All right. Go ahead and begin.
Thank you for having me today, and thank you for listening. My name is Mark Stevens. My background is in law enforcement. I spent nearly 3 decades as a Texas peace officer, retired from the Houston Police Department, and currently work as a private investigator licensed by the state of Texas. At the heart of this bill is a young girl named Bianca Lozano, as you've just heard. Bianca was kidnapped from her mother at the age of 1 year old and was officially listed as a missing person for over 25 years. Despite the efforts of local and state law enforcement, the FBI, the State Department, Homeland Security, the U.S. Consulate, Interpol, several other private investigators, and a number of Mexican agencies, Bianca remained missing, and her kidnapper was listed as a wanted fugitive out of Harris County for the criminal charge of interference with child custody. I became involved in this investigation when Bianca's mother contacted me through the media and asked for my help. And after listening to her story, my first thought was this girl is a Texan, and it's time to settle up and go get her. And so I did. I was able to find her down in Mexico, still living with her father who had abducted her. For all practical purposes, she's still being held captive. I got the FBI involved after I confirmed her identity. I met with them down there. We were ready to kick the door and go arrest him and go get the girl. But in verifying the warrant before we did that, we found that the extradition warrant had been dropped. Because of international law, I'm told that the extradition was not valid because the criminal charge was interference with child custody and not the aggravated kidnapping. So I went back and met with the district attorney. We tried to file the aggravated kidnapping charge because it was a valid charge, and now we proved that he still has her. And we learned that the statutes of limitations had expired on aggravated kidnapping, so we could not file that charge and go back and arrest him for that. It took me about 3 months to figure out another way to go back down there and try to have him arrested and get the girl. We did that. We were able to do that. I went with Mexican authorities, the police, back down there, and we arrested him on a local charge of false identification because he had been living as a fugitive under a fake name. And we were able to get the girl at that time. And as Deana said, we got Bianca back to the police station, and she had, a brief hour and a half with her mother for the first time in 25 years. And because of the situation, long story short, there was a hurricane that came and they were releasing prisoners. He was released hours after we arrested him, and he got Bianca and was gone again. And there was no recourse for us to go back on that aggravated kidnapping because the statutes of limitations had expired. And so that's why we're here today, trying to fix that broken law so that this never happens to another Texas mother, another Texas child, and no Texan should ever be left behind.
No, I appreciate the work you've done on behalf of their family, and thank you for sharing that story with us. Members, do we have any questions? No? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify on for or against House Bill 3025 at this time? Chair sees none and recognizes Representative Vasut to close on the measure.
Thank you, members of the committee. We'll come back with the committee substitute, deliver that to you. Appreciate your favorable consideration. If you have any other questions afterwards, please feel free to let me know. And with that, I close.
Thank you, sir. If there's no objection, House Bill 3025 will be left pending at this time. Is there any objection? Chair is none, and House Bill 3025 is left pending. Chair lays out House Bill 4593.